Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second day. My name is Marco Pinfari. I'm the Associate Dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences here at the UC and Assistant Professor of Political Science. I'm going to chair this panel this morning, a first one for the day, which is on diversities and modalities in the Maghreb. We're having 4 contributions, and we're going to follow the order that you have in the program. So our contributors, panelists for today are Dr. Khadija Arfawi, Mrs. Buthaina Ben Kridis, if that's correct, Dr. Moha Inagi, or Inaji, I guess, Inaji, getting that, and Dr. Fatma Sadiqi. So we're going to get started with Tunisia and Dr. Khadija. So we have 10 minutes for each contributor.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
I already have a riot on the panel, so okay, let's keep it 10 to 15 minutes. Also so that we spare some time for some comments towards the end, and I'm going to send you some reminders towards the end of your allotted time so that we make sure that we keep some time for the end. Thank you.
Well, we have been told that we had 15 minutes. I did not invent that. So anyway, good morning, everybody.
I'm not going to contest that.
Yeah. Great honor to be in Dunya, as Egypt is known everywhere in Egypt and elsewhere. I've tried to shorten as much as possible my presentation, and I will try to be as short as possible. Tunisia, is it? What?
Just checking if it's good. Okay.
Tunisia can boast of managing a diversity of populations peacefully. White and black Muslims, including Amaziran, represent 99% of the population, while the remaining 1% include Christians, Jews, and Baha'is. The Amaziran, or Berbers, are granted by history a minor role in spite of the fact that they were in Tunisia long before Carthage. And yet, this fact seems to be ignored, at least in Tunisia. Since 2011, things have changed, however, and information has been spreading that Tunisia does have a Berber population, mostly established on the heights of the southern region, where they have been able to safeguard their culture as well as their language. Those of them who move about throughout the country mingle with the other population and speak Arabic and or French, while the others may only speak Amazigh. In any case, they do not consider themselves Arabs. Indeed, if their existence is established and recognized in Morocco, where they represent 40 to 50% of the population, in Algeria, where they represent 25% to 30%, in Tunisia, they represent a small community with less than 1% claiming Berber identity. Bourguiba, the first president of Tunisia, saw divisions as a threat to unity, and so he managed diversity by imposing his benevolent dictatorship. Indeed, in the same way that he allowed only one political party, the Destur, and one official women's organization, he dismantled all tribal structures in order to realize his ideals of, quote, a homogeneous and united nation. Unlike Morocco, Algeria, and Libya, Bourguiba put an end to tribal structures. Like Ibn Khaldun, he believed that, quote, clan spirit represented a permanent threat to the state, end of quote. These people, however, have historically defended their country. Resistance to the Arab conquest, the 8th century, with Al-Kahna as one of the most famous people. During World War II, and also during for the war for independence. It's believed that without their participation, the towns would not have been able to oust France. The unity achieved by Bourguiba was shattered in 2011 with the Arab Spring, with the Islamist revival that brought about an issue of identity based on religion, dividing the bewildered nation that Muslims into Muslims and apostates, as Salafists qualified those that did not agree with the adoption of Sharia. Unheard of violence was used against Muslim fellow citizens, to which outraged Tunisians responded, putting forward their multiculture, claiming the value they attributed to their diversity. Aren't they a blend of Punic, Roman, Byzantine, Spanish, Ottoman, Maltese, Italian, French, and Corsican in a country that shelters Muslims, Christians, Jews, and more recently, Baha'is, who have lived in harmony, respecting each other's creeds? This powerful response of Tunisian civil society was one way of protecting pluralism and the right to difference. That of the government has not been clear, or not so clear. Being so few, the Amaziran are bound to mix with the other populations and learn their languages. It's difficult to make out their exact number because of their dispersion throughout the country, and also because national statistics are not clear about that. Those who have migrated to the cities and to Europe are often men who may go home once a year, as can be witnessed in Mufid Atletli's movie, The Season of Men, or Mawsum al-Rijal, or al-Rigal in Egyptian pronunciation. Atletli depicted the plight of women in the island of Jerba, living with their in-laws while their husbands worked in cities or in Europe, selling artifacts and carpets. Now, there are international treaties Tunisia ratified. The wave of democracy that followed the 2011 revolution has led to a visibility of the pluralistic diversity of the social landscape, bringing a hope to many, in particular to peaceful, and I insist on the word peaceful, because none of them has ever manifested any violence, to peaceful minority groups who have remained discriminated against, although not overtly, in spite of a good 2014 constitution and in spite of the international treaties ratified by Tunisia. On the 13th of January 1967, Tunisia ratified the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, adopted by the UN in 1965. However, the Tunisian government's weakness in managing pluralism remained weak. In 2003, its 2003 annual report to the UN was not well received, and its claim that there was no racial discrimination was refused. In 2003, Tamazgha, a Paris-based NGO, sent a report to the Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination to complain. The Arab Spring gave them the courage to ask for recognition. Their first NGO in 2011 was the fruit of their endeavor. A TV presenter, a Mazir TV presenter, received death threats. See how people do not understand. Why did he receive death threats? Because he presented a program on Amazigh claims to recognition. At a TV debate, which is to be found on YouTube, a young female Amazigh had a hard time explaining to an Islamist that learning Amazigh language was not kufr. It was neither against Islam nor against Arabic as a national language. Her insistence on the fact that she was also Muslim, that she prayed and that she read the Quran, and that learning and speaking Amazigh would harm neither Islam nor Arabic was fruitless. He wouldn't understand. Okay? Article 31 of the Constitution states, freedom of opinion, thought, expression, information, and publication shall be guaranteed. These freedoms shall not be subject to prior censorship. This is why I said that the government answer is very weak. Why then are Amazigh children not or prevented from speaking Arabic at school? Blacks in Tunisia. Tunisian blacks represent around 15% of the population. But why is it that only 1 out of 217 members is in parliament today, in 2017? In some southern cities, they live in segregated neighborhoods. In addition to the Tunisian blacks, there have been around 10,000 youth coming from 24 West and Central African countries. Tunisian blacks have been victims to racism and harassment, a practice rarely heard of before. In addition, violence against them has reached unprecedented heights, particularly against Africans who have been targeted more violently in the past few years. Let me jump to Christians, sorry for that, just because to be on time I have 2 minutes left. Christianity is the second population with Roman Catholics, Protestant, Russian Orthodox, French Reformists, Anglicans, etc. Ibla, yeah? We have 2 minutes, yeah. A Tunisian organization of research founded by the White Fathers was burned down and a priest was died in the process. And we have a small group of Baha'is who remain an invisible minority, invisible because they are not free to practice their religion. Well, my conclusions. The communities presented in this research are thus discriminated against for 3 different reasons. So far, the more or less violent forms of discrimination against minorities are perpetuated by individuals and not by the states. The government's focus is on ensuring security and saving the economy, which is presently at its lowest level. But it's not acceptable that they should say discrimination is a minor problem. 2 main things can be done that would not distract them from their main objective. First of all, an effort should be on harmonizing the penal code and the labor laws with the Constitution. Second, youth should be introduced to human rights from their first years at school, where they should be taught about equal rights among people, whatever their creed, color, or difference. I have to, okay, so I'm going to go to the end. General education must be reinforced together with the knowledge of universal culture. In particular, youth should learn about their own history while learning about important events throughout the world. Civic education will allow youth to the fundamental principle of equality and non-discrimination between human beings. This is to say that the Tunisian government should not manage its effort to ensure equal treatment to all its citizens. It's good to allow civil society to work in that direction, but more needs to be done in legislation and in education by the media to create cohesion and understanding among the different communities. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khadija. Our next presenter is Ms. Buthaina, who is a PhD candidate from Carthage University, who is going to present on managing diversity in Tunisia post-revolution, Jewish minority as an example.
Good morning. I would like to thank you for organizing this conference. Today I will explain Today I will explain how to manage diversity in Tunisia post-revolution by focusing on the Jewish minority as an example. Considered as an Arab Spring success story, Tunisia undergoes a complicated process of democratic transition. These are the most important moments of the Tunisian revolution and the transitional process. This influences different categories of the Tunisian society and makes the task of managing diversity harder. Yet, there is a concern about how the change in the country would damage diversity and pluralism and then impact minorities such as ethnic minorities like the Amazighs or religious minorities such as the Jewish minority, living in relative peace with Muslim neighbors for more than 1,000 years. Rooted in Tunisia for more than 2,000 years, the Jewish community is one of the oldest minorities in Tunisia. This community was divided into two disparate groups. The natives are the indigenous Jews, called in the Judaico-Arab dialect the Twensa, the Tunisians, and the new immigrants coming from Lagan, Italy, called Ghonim, or known as the Grana. Now, the Jewish community comprises approximately between 1,500 and 2,000 individuals. 1/3 of them lives in and around the capital, Tunis, while the remaining are located in the south, precisely in Zarzis and in the island of Jerba, in which the Griba synagogue has served the Jewish community for 2.5 millennia. So this paper suggests the modalities as well as the guidelines for ensuring a future built on diversity, partnership, and pluralism in Tunisia by focusing on the Jewish minority and its inclusion in the Tunisian society post-revolution. Considering the Tunisian political and social scene and measuring its ability to accept and to work for a true diversity in the country, this paper suggests answering the following questions. What are the practical modalities to cope with the diversity challenges and to achieve a smooth pluralism? And what can be learned from the successful example of the Griba pilgrimage? Actually, to answer these questions, it is worthy to determine the relevant roadmap to achieve true pluralism in Tunisia post-revolution before briefly presenting the successful example of the Griba pilgrimage. This paper suggests practical modalities starting with a substantial legal reform based on innovative laws, not only protecting minorities, but also recognizing their cultural identities and specificities towards their inclusion in the Tunisian society. This substantial legal reform means avoiding the ambiguity of different laws, especially the Constitution of 2014, the new Constitution. For example, Article 1 of this Constitution is limited to the religion of the dominant majority by considering it as the religion of the state. Also, according to Article 74, Jews and even Christians are deprived of the nomination for the presidency of the Republic. Besides, the substantial legal reform must touch even the identity of the country, which should not be limited to the ethnic and religious traits of the dominant majority without officially recognizing minorities' identities. Here we can cite the example of the preamble of the 2014 Constitution, which stresses that the identity or the culture of Tunisia is limited to the Arab Islamic identity. And Articles 58, 74, 76, 89, which obliges the oath which the parliament, the president, and the government should or must take, and it is exclusively religious. The substantial legal reform requires the amendment of ambiguous laws defending citizens' rights and liberties. Example, the famous Article 6 of the 2014 Constitution. This article protecting the freedom of conscience, of worship, and religion. But this article is criticized by being ambiguous and even it is considered as useless. The substantial legal reform requires a clear and solid constitutional protection of religious minorities by criminalizing all offenses against the sacred. This substantial legal reform urges the need for reforming the legislative system related to heritage, since protecting and preserving patrimony and historical and religious sites is an expression of cultural diversity. This requires the need for legal prerogatives and procedures protecting heritage from attacks and negligence. The relevant roadmap requires the use of political modalities and social and cultural modalities towards the inclusion of the Tunisian Jewish minority. In brief, the political modalities are related to the political will and the governmental practices which should be oriented to guaranteeing the civil and political rights of Jewish minority. Example, the eligibility to hold the office of presidency. I think that the most important modality is or modalities are the social and cultural modalities, which are based on the pressure of the Tunisian civil society and its constructive role through the contribution of Tunisian NGOs, the media and the art, to defending minorities. We have here the example of the Tunisian Association supporting minorities interested in defending different types of minorities like religious, ethnic, and sexual minorities. We have also the Association of Dar al-Dhikra. It is an association for the preservation and promotion of Judaico-Tunisian heritage. The use of social and cultural modalities requires the organization of campaigns sensitizing Tunisians on accepting difference and diversity. The establishment of a regulatory mechanism which is efficient in managing dialogue between all the components and the parties of the Tunisian society. This national dialogue is the basis for determining a common ground, fixing the extent of conflicts, and acquiring the skills necessary for the conflict's resolution and control in order to avoid negative effects on collective relations. It is also important to know the doctrines and traits of other religions, like Christianity and Judaism, which is not the case of the Tunisian Muslims. Practically, it is necessary to include more information about the non-Muslim religions in the textbooks and the media. I want just to present briefly the successful example of the Ghriba pilgrimage. I want to give you a general idea about the Ghriba synagogue, the Ghriba pilgrimage, the annual Ghriba pilgrimage. And I want to focus on saying that there was a commitment from the Tunisian government to secure the Ghriba, the annual Ghriba pilgrimage, especially after the terrorist attacks. So, the name of the Ghriba synagogue is taken from the Jewish saint Al-Ghriba, meaning the stranger or the miraculous. It is the oldest Jewish temple in Africa. These are some attacks against the Jewish synagogues in Sfax and in the Great Synagogue in Tunis. So the Ghriba synagogue is the oldest Jewish temple in Africa. According to legend, the Ghriba synagogue was built around 500 BC by Jews fleeing Jerusalem after the Roman destruction of Solomon Temple. This synagogue became the destination of Jewish pilgrims from Tunisia and abroad. The Ghriba pilgrimage is known as the Hilula, which means celebration, and takes place on the holiday of Lag Bouma year to commemorate and honor the 2nd century Jewish mystic Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It is an annual event in which Tunisian Jewish pilgrims and other Jews from Europe and all over the world, including Israel, come every May of each year to celebrate in the Ghriba synagogue and to visit the graves of the ancient rabbis. The Lag Bouma is a ritual in which pilgrims light candles in the sanctuary, place hard boiled eggs, including handwritten hopes, in a cave dug into the floor of the synagogue, and make donations. In a courtyard decorated by Tunisian flags, the pilgrims celebrate by singing in the street, eating couscous with fish, and drinking fig brandy and beer. The pilgrims make a prayer with a promise to return, which is similar to the Muslim ziyaras. What can be learned from the Ghriba pilgrimage is not only the free performance of religious rituals, but also a real manifestation of partnership, tolerance, and sharing between Tunisian Muslims and Jews, since the Muslims participate in the celebration and join Jewish pilgrims. So, after the Tunisian Revolution, terrorist attacks and insecurity augment the fear of the Jewish community. This also leads Israel to warn Jews from coming to Tunisia and the Ghriba pilgrimage. The state security measures emphasize the Tunisian government's strong will to protect Jewish pilgrims and to guarantee the success of the annual Ghriba pilgrimage. For example, in the 2014 Griba pilgrimage, this pilgrimage occurred under a tight security. Tourism Minister Amel Karboul has attended some rituals of the pilgrims to encourage it. Pilgrims from Israel, especially the Israeli passport holders, are allowed to attend the pilgrimage with official entry procedures. In the 2016 Griba pilgrimage, visitors coming from outside Tunisia are accompanied by high security protection. Political and religious elite support this event, marking the attendance of the Tunisian president, the Minister of Tourism, and the co-founder of the Nahda Party, Abdel Fattah Mourou, and the political leader Mohsen Marzouk. 6 years after the revolution, Tunisia still faces diversity challenges. To conclude, this urges the need for progressive laws, social and political practices recognizing the inclusion of ethnic and religious minorities, guaranteeing their rights and freedoms, and giving them the opportunity to grow and expand. Today, some associations ask for the marriage between Muslim women and non-Muslim men. These dilemmas require the prompt execution of fundamental and deep legal and judicial reforms. Here it is worthy to mention the unprecedented move of the 2011 Moroccan Constitution, which officially recognizes that Morocco is nourished and enriched by Hebraic influences. Finally, as governmental practices are concerned, next month, will be a new test for the Tunisian government to show its ability to guarantee the security and the success of the 2017 Griba pilgrimage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bouteina. A very fascinating presentation and very interesting pictures. We're moving on, and we are moving towards Morocco now with Dr. Moha Enneji, who is the president of the International Institute for Language and Culture in Fez, who is going to present on the Amazigh movement in Morocco from cultural to political rights.
Thank you very much. I would like first to thank warmly Professor Saadetdine Ibrahim and Professor Barbara Ibrahim for inviting me to take part in this very interesting conference. We invited them last year to Fez to attend our festival and forum of Amazigh culture, and they gave a wonderful contribution. So I'm very pleased to be here at this beautiful university, and I would like to just say a few words. I don't have much time, 15 minutes maximum, about the Amazigh cultural movement in Morocco and North Africa in general. So the goal of this presentation is to discuss the dynamics of multiculturalism and the Amazigh movement in Morocco, and by extension in Algeria as well, and their repercussions on diversity, but also on the state and democracy. And I will show that multicultural concerns are not exclusively national, especially in a world marked by movement, migration, globalization that defy the exclusive role of citizenship. And the framework of this presentation is post-colonial theory and hybridity theory as presented in Peterse and Baba. So as Khadija Arfawi mentioned, there is a Tamazgha or the Amazigh movement across North Africa from the south, from Morocco, from Tangier to Siwa in Egypt. And the Amazigh movement, it tends to be transnational. I would like to compare it here with the Kurdish movement. also which is transnational because it exists across many countries. In the case of Amazigh, it occurs not only in North Africa, but also in sub-Saharan Africa, including Niger and Togo and Burkina Faso, and Mali, of course. So Morocco and the Maghreb in general is characterized by multilingualism and multiculturalism and cultural diversity, because a variety of languages are spoken in this region, including Amazigh, Arabic dialects, classical Arabic, French, Spanish, and English, which requires better language planning in accordance with the needs of citizens in terms of education and administration. And we have seen yesterday that diversity is something that is known and lived in the MENA region for centuries, and that the major problem is not diversity itself, but the management of diversity at the political and administrative level. So North Africa experienced Phoenician, Roman, Byzantine, Vandal, Arab, French, and Spanish conquests. And the first inhabitants were called Berbers by Romans, barber, which means in the Roman language, exotic or strange language. And the Amazigh, that's why the Amazigh natives prefer the word Amazigh, which means free people. Okay, so for the activists, Berber tends to be rather derogatory, so they prefer the word Amazigh. And during the 3rd millennium BC, the Amazigh dynasties in Morocco and North Africa were organized in a confederation of kingdoms. And Muhammad Shafiq, a Moroccan historian, published in 1983 a well-read book titled 33 Centuries of Berber Dynasties in North Africa. So you see, it's a very old civilization, and Berber kings established treaties of good neighborhood and friendship with both Carthage and Rome. And many Berber dynasties, including Al-Morabitin, Al-Muwahhidin, Al-Barghawata, Al-Mariniyin, whose rule in the past extended from Siwa in Egypt to the south of Morocco, and they used Berber for everyday transactions and classical Arabic or a European language, such as Greek or Latin, for writing purposes. And then came the Arab conquest in the 7th century. The first Muslim Arabs arrived in North Africa, bringing a strong language and a strong religion, Arabic and Islam. They gradually imposed themselves on the Amazigh populations, and by the end of the 11th century, they had completely conquered the Amazigh land and spread Islam in the region. And the Arabization process followed and spiraled from the 15th to 17th century with the influx of the Andalusian Muslim refugees who came back from Spain, who had fled the Inquisition of Christian Spain, leaving behind the very last territories occupied by Arabs in southern Spain, according to Malouf, 1993. So Berbers in North Africa are 99% Muslim today. There are very few Jewish and very few Christian Berbers. And they adopted Islam as their religion since the 7th century. Of course, despite that, they maintained their pre-Islamic traditions and architecture and cultural rituals. So the process of Islamization and Arabization were never able to completely obliterate the Amazigh culture. Amazigh took refuge in the mountains of the Atlas and the Rif, and they were able to preserve their mother tongue, cultures, customs, and social system. They built villages organized according to their own traditional social and political units. And they still today maintain the political unit of Jama'ah, which is a representative assembly that is legislated according to local custom and law. They have kept their own institutions in parallel with the civil laws and policies enforced by the new rulers. And by setting apart their territory and preserving their culture and language and forms of social organization, the Amazigh people developed an independent lifestyle and a strong sense of community. Nowadays, the Moroccan Berbers are divided into three major groups: the Rifians in the north, and the Amaziran or Tamazigh speakers in the Middle Atlas or center of Morocco, and Ishelhain in the High Atlas. And in Algeria, you have the Kabils, the Shawiya, the Oras, which are the three major Berber groups. Other populations of Berbers live in the deserts and the oases of Figig in Morocco, but also of Ghardaya and Mzab and Gorara in Algeria. Of course, the Tuareg populations are Berber, and they are concentrated in southern Algeria, the central and southern Sahara, Libya, Mali, and Niger. And these are some of the pictures showing the architecture of the Berber population, which are still there in the south of Morocco. Of course, when the French came, they tried to divide Morocco and Algeria into Arabs and Berbers, and they came up with their own policy of divide and rule. And we have this Berber decree, which said that the Berber regions in Morocco would be run or ruled by Berber customs, customary law, and that the rest will be, under different rule. And the aim was to divide Arabs and Berbers. Of course, the French also imposed their own language and marginalized totally the local languages, including Arabic and Berber. And the Berbers, as I said, have really preserved their own culture, song, and dance until today. And of course, the Berber Dahir actually was rejected by the Berber populations and by the Arab populations, and they joined forces together to fight for independence in both Morocco and Algeria. And this is the sign today used by the Amazigh activists across the Maghreb. And the letter there in red is a Z, which stands for Amazigh, okay? The blue for the sea, and the green for the green lands of the Berber areas, and the yellow for the deserts of the Berber land. Of course, the early years of independence were rather marked by state building, and as a result, Amazigh language and culture were completely marginalized in the Maghreb. And of course, that's why today there is a tension between Arabic and Amazigh, in addition to the existing tensions between Western values and Arab Muslim beliefs. Of course, the impact of state building on Amazigh is dramatic because the language has been excluded not only from education, but also from research and from administration and television until very recently. Of course, Berber and colloquial Arabic, are both relegated to private space and informal settings. And Berber activists today ask for boosting not only for preserving and revitalizing their language and culture, but also for boosting economic development in the Berber zones, and also the promotion of their language and its recognition at the highest level of the state. Of course, unfortunately, many rural Amazigh-speaking areas are still characterized by poverty and illiteracy. And illiteracy in the rural areas where there are most Berber people, illiteracy among women reaches 65% today, and that's really deplorable. And although there have been important improvements in education and economic development in Morocco since independence, these positive changes have not permeated down to the poor, including the Amazigh people. And because most of this population lives in mountainous and rural regions, they are remarkably disfavored in comparison with other urban areas. And here is a photo of a young kid with a switch on his mouth from Arabic to French, but no Amazigh. This was especially from independence until 1990s. But today Amazigh is recognized as an official language in 2011 constitution after the Arab Spring. And that's one of the major gains in Morocco after the uprisings, that at last the Amazigh language is recognized as a language of the state, as an official language. And of course, the impact of the social media has been very important. That's why now we have access to the satellite television, in addition to Berber channel created in 2009, which broadcasts most of its programs in Berber language. So the social media as well have played an important role in not only revitalizing the language and culture of Berbers, but also in connecting the Berber movement to the rest of the world, to the other social movements, to Amazigh movements in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Mali, in Libya, but also in diasporas in Europe and the United States. So I think it's very important to see that the Amazigh demonstrations during the Arab Springs were together. Berbers from Libya, from Tunisia, from Morocco, Algeria, put joint forces together to ask for revitalization and recognition of their own language and culture. So I don't have much time. Now Morocco, of course, has recognized the Berber language, and the language is taught in schools since 2003, and we have the Soroyd Institute for Amazigh Culture, whose objective is to revitalize the language, standardize it, introduce it in most schools, and today it is taught in over 5,000 schools around Morocco, and we have master degrees in a few universities that specialize in Berber culture and heritage. But of course, we cannot exclude Morocco from its context, the regional and international context, and I can say that the resurgence of Berber demands has been fostered by globalization. We talked about social media, but also by the growing role of human rights and the rise of minority and ethnic groups all over the world. By the way, in Morocco, Berbers represent about 50%. It's the largest population of Berbers in the region. Algeria has only 25%, and in Tunisia has only 1%, Libya 15%, but it was crushed by the Gaddafi regime. So the growing rise of minority groups is very important throughout the world and the region. And of course, one characteristic of the Berber movement is that it advocates separation of religion and politics, because the Berber language, unlike Arabic, is not based on a holy book. So by definition, it's a secular language, and the activists are asking for secularism without being anti-religion, because most of them are actually Muslim. So conclusion from all this, the Amazigh movement plays and still plays an important role in the strengthening of civil society and democratization in Morocco. And until now, it has been peaceful and operates within the rule of law as a cultural movement, and it is against separatism as well. Even in Algeria, where the Kabyle are very strong, they don't ask for independence, they are asking now only for some kind of cultural autonomy. Activists also ask for the promotion of the Amazigh language and culture and their integration in education, media administration at the national and transnational levels. And they negotiate power to develop political engagement at the transnational space, which forces us to rethink the rapprochement between ethnic groups and imagined nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the last contribution for this panel is going to be from Dr. Fatma Sadiqi, who is the director of the ISIS Center for Women and Development, still in Fez, who is going to present on Amazigh women carpet weaving, the forgotten artistic knowledge.
Thank you very much. Well, I join Moha in thanking Dr. Sa'adeddin Ibrahim and Barbara Ibrahim. I'm very happy to be here and share some of thoughts with you today in continuation of what Moha has just said. I'm going to look at another aspect of the Amazigh culture. That's Amazigh women's art, especially their carpet weaving. But before going into that, let me first ask this question: what does diversity mean in Morocco? Now, very briefly, it is a positive thing. Although consciously or unconsciously, people are aware of the instrumentalization of Amazigh as Berber and culture throughout the history of Morocco, but in general, it is considered as something positive. Instrumentalization, Moha mentioned, for example, the Berber Dahir. It was instrumentalized by the colonizers. It was instrumentalized by the state. Berber in the past was a token of backwardness. Today, it's a token of modernity. Modernity is very much related to women and all these things. So and also this instrumentalization is instigated by many factors. Morocco, as you all know, is a Muslim developing country which is geographically very close to Europe. Only 7 miles separate us from Gibraltar and Europe. It's also a monarchy. We are the oldest ruling monarchy in the world. The Japanese one is the oldest, but we are the oldest ruling one. And also the state was born in Morocco, in Fez, in the 8th century. And all these things, I mean, you can extrapolate from that to understand how Berber is important in the instrumentalization. Where presumably, when the Arabs came to Morocco, they didn't bring their wives. They had to marry indigenous women. So it's very difficult to speak about ethnicity in Morocco. Actually, what we have is not an ethnic problem. What we have is a communication problem. In the sense that there are 4 major languages used in Morocco. Standard Arabic, the written language, which is not a mother tongue, which means that the 60% or 65% of illiterate women means that 60% of Moroccan women don't understand what the king says in his speeches, which are delivered in Standard Arabic. That's the communication problem. French is very strong in business and military, and Moroccan Arabic, like Berber, is a language that's used in everyday life. So that's what we have. We don't have an ethnic problem per se. Of course, there were waves of Arabs who established themselves there, but North Africa, I think, is mostly and historically a Berber land or an Amazigh land. Okay, so this diversity, Moha talked about it historically. It was dealt with politically, it was dealt with socially. I'm going to focus on something I know best, culturally. And inside culturally, I'm going to approach this from my vantage point, as a linguist and a gender person at the same time. And more specifically, I'm going to look at it from a language and gender perspective. Now, inside this language, as you know, I'm going, because I have only 15 minutes, I hope, is only, I would also reduce it more to language, to a specific type of language, that's art. Why art? Because, I mean, art is more resilient than any other way of communication that we have. Art, especially Berber women's art, carpet weaving, is an art that has survived colonization because it was not in school. It has survived the censure of state building, and it is still there, as I'm going to argue later on, as a token of plurality, a token of continuation, the most important, if you want, part of what Amazigh constitute, what it means for Moroccans. I consider it actually as a pathway within the framework of this conference to plurality and to this living together. But before that, why is it important to look at art? Because, sorry, I also believe that knowledge cannot be only written. And many philosophers of language, like Linda Alcoff, for example, have that, and Mohanty also, have shown that knowledge cannot be, we cannot have faith only in written. Symbols are important, and experiential knowledge also is important. And women have that. Women, in the Amazigh culture, it's women who are the artists. If we look at the Arabic culture, we see a lot of men, calligraphers, artists in general. But in the Berber, I'm going to use Berber and Amazigh interchangeably, taking into consideration that the two are nowadays different. So the artists in our culture are women. And their knowledge is also a type of knowledge that we need to understand. And I'm going to make two main arguments. I give them to you first, and then I go over them as I proceed. The first one is that I argue that, I will show you images later, that women's art is at the root of Amazigh alphabet today. And the alphabet is the backbone of the grammar of a language. So I'm trying to say that the language has been preserved, because in linguistics it's very, very rare to see a language surviving without a history of written grammar and written alphabet. So we are in front of a very peculiar case where you have a language that has survived. For some historians, it has survived for 7,000 years. It's a very old language, and it's there without having a continuity in documents showing its grammar, its lexicography, its morphology, and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to say that this is because, this grammar and whatever was going underneath through the art and through carpet weaving and women's contribution to it. That's the first argument. The second one, within the spirit of this conference, I want also to argue that it is a pathway to pluralism. It's something that we should, that's why I called it a forgotten knowledge. It's something that we need to take into consideration. Okay, so as I said, women are the artists, and women wove, for millennia. Let me go first to this. When I said millennia, this is one of the oldest pieces that we have, that archaeologists show us about the existence of some symbols that existed that people in North Africa used. This is a very old piece of symbols. Now, if you look clearly at those symbols, many of them now reappear, not only in the alphabet, but also in carpet weaving. And carpet weaving, that's the only thing left from this civilization. It's the oldest thing that we have. We don't have anything written about the Amazigh culture. So yeah, they are the weavers, and they are still the weavers today. It's true that carpet weaving has become, it has experienced some kind of evolution, but the symbols in there are still the same. Most of the symbols contain a circle, they contain a horizontal line and a triangle, which we find in jewelry, which we also find in architecture, and there is a recurrence of these symbols. What does the circle, horizontal line, and triangle mean? This is a tentative. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right in this, but I see them as the symbols of goddess Tanit, who existed in Carthage, in Tunisia, and who was worshipped before. If you Google Tanit today, you will find the circle for the head, the horizontal line for the arms, and the triangle for the body. So this dual deity, which existed before the coming of monotheistic if you want, religions was very important. Now, what Islam did not really, Islam came with one religion, but these deities which existed before did not really disappear, but they were transformed. They went into homes, and now they seem to reappear in art, because art is not something that you can obliterate very easily. So you see it in these carpets, different shapes of carpets, because we have carpets in Rabat, different types of them. Okay, and you see the symbols. Then there, I also used some young girls using the symbols and how sometimes they draw them, etc. And it's very important, as Moha mentioned, now that Berber or Amazigh is an official language. You have many music bands, youth music bands calling themselves Berber names, gender studies centers calling themselves Tanit, calling themselves whatever. These symbols have not really disappeared. They are reappearing here and there in Moroccan culture, and they think in North African culture. So the second argument is that, all this, I'm going just to say it's very, I don't have, very simple ideas I'm sharing with you. I'm still working, this is work in progress. So it means that this is something that we can use, since it has been like a preserver, consolidator of pluralism in Moroccan societies. We can still, it's a pathway, since we're talking about modalities that we can use. For our great sociologist who passed, Fatima Mernissi, in some of her works, she does highlight the fact that women's carpet weaving in Morocco is the only remnant of the old, if you want, bridge between the two shores of the Mediterranean. So it is an old legacy. It is something that has always united between the two shores of the Mediterranean, as I said. Okay, so in conclusion, I would say that Berber women's art is multi-faceted. It's very important. It's plural. It's unknown. It's a field that still needs to be explored. And as Moha mentioned, it's a lot of it is, it's not something, when you look at it, and I have been looking at it for a while now, it's not something which is anti-religious, or it's something that keeps secularity, but at the same time does not deny religion as it is. At the conscious level, it's that. The unconscious level, I am not, I think, qualified to talk about that. And a last, maybe, recommendation is that I think one way of preserving this and showing it is to introduce Amazigh in textbooks, not only in Morocco, but across the region. As a pupil, when I was a pupil at school, the first class that we had was السكان المغاربة الأولون هم الأمازيغ ابن مازيغ, full stop, and we start with Islam and the coming of Islam. We as children in Morocco, we don't know anything about the pre-Islamic era. This is one of the zones of fear. I heard yesterday about the fear of diversity. I think it's not too late. We can recuperate that through education. We should look at it from that point of view, because as a child, and this is also very personal, I have, lived all my life very curious about what happened before. The Sukkan al-Maghrib. This one sentence, it's something that obliterates centuries of knowledge, that now is the only thing we have is this carpet weaving, but we also, through these websites and these things, there is a thirst for this. People want. Now we have little cards at the New Year Eve that we have with Hannibal, with Tanit, with all that. So there is need for it, and I want to end with this hopeful note. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, everybody. So I will open the floor for questions. I think we might want to take 5 to 10 minutes into the break so that we have some chance for everybody to contribute, but we'll see how that goes. So the break is currently scheduled at 11, so we can go probably 11:10 or something like that, depending on how many questions we have. We'll take rounds of questions, then we'll share them with our panelists. So if you would like to contribute, I have a gentleman on the back. Yours are here. So please introduce yourself first if you can, and then there should be a mic coming, I think. Yes. I think we prefer questions in English, but also questions in Arabic can also be fine. In that case, I would just kindly ask the panelists to quickly summarize the question for the members of the public that wouldn't understand them. Please.
شكرا سيد رئيس الجلسة، وأرجو أن يقوم أحد المترجمين بالترجمة، لأن أغلب الحاضرين هنا يتحدثون باللغة العربية، فبالتالي كان يجب أن يكون هناك ترجمة باللغة العربية. في الواقع أن لي سؤالي أنني لم أجد في هذا المؤتمر نتحدث عن إدارة للتنوع في الشرق الأوسط، ولم أسمع كلمة تتحدث عن دولة هي التي تثير الفتن الطائفية في الشرق الأوسط، هي دولة إيران. فقد كانت حقوق الأقليات، أعتقد أن الأقليات لم تظهر بشكل فعال في العراق أو في سوريا أو حتى في اليمن إلا بسبب التوغل الإيراني. فلماذا لم أجد ورقة عمل تتحدث عن هذا الشأن؟ هذا سؤالي وشكرا. أرجو أن يقوم أحد بترجمة السؤال.
Thank you very much. So we have a session that is on this, but I think we'll have the chance also for... We'll see if there is a chance.
There is a session after that.
I know. I know that we have a session on this, but we're going to collect questions, so you have the chance if you want to answer, but Yosra, please.
I wanted to thank the panel first for the amazing presentations, very creative presentations given by this panel. I would like to address Dr. Moha concerning my question concerns the political process of recognizing the Amazigh language in Morocco. My understanding that the Muslim Brotherhood did gain lots of space, particularly in the government. And I would like to know what made the Amir al-Mu'mineen, the king, recognize the Amazigh language.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think Baget Orni on the back first, and then yourself, and then we'll ask our panelists to answer. Okay, you can go first as well. Fine. Please.
كنت عايز اسال بس يعني الدكتوره فاطمه طبعا والدكتور نهى العرض ممتاز يعني في وضوح وفي روح الاثنين الحقيقه يعني الواحد حب الفن الامازيغي من خلال حديثهم يعني فهم واضح ان الروح موجوده وممكن بسبب هذه الروح ان الفن واللغه والتاريخ ينتشر. سؤالي بقى انا المحدد عن اللغه الامازيغيه. يعني حضرتك هل الرسوم اللي بتستخدم في السجاد أثرت في اللغة؟ يعني الألفابيت بتاع اللغة الأمازيغية عايز أعرفها يعني وإيه السبب في عدم انتشارها؟ شكرا.
Thank you very much. Last question for this round, Dr. Baget.
Thank you, Marco. I am very impressed by you as a chair, keeping the time and very clearly. I have actually two questions. One, perhaps a marginal one. Ages ago, when I had some colleagues from the Maghreb, they used to speak either in Arabic or in French. I'm very impressed by the English of all these panelists. And I'm asking the question, is there a change in foreign languages in North Africa, as we have seen in Lebanon? Lebanon used to be very French-speaking, and it is getting Americanized. So, is in the Maghreb, we are moving toward English, and what is the status and the reason? Coming back to the papers themselves, I wish we had a paper on Algeria. And I wonder, obviously, that might come in a publication, but I wonder if some of you who talked about the Amazigh in Tunisia or in Morocco can say something about the status of this group in Algeria and whether there is any transnational organization and what makes for the differences between the treatment in Algeria and in Morocco. And last question is to Busaina. We have talked a lot about external aspects and external impact on national diversity. Where do the Tunisian Jews stand towards the Arab-Israeli conflict? And how does that impact their status? I mean, do they take the side of the Palestinians 100%? Do they have any criticism of Israel? Where do they stand exactly, and whether we have any data about that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll have some answers from the panel first, and we'll have a second round of questions after that. Can I just ask the panelists just to be a bit brief so that we can have time also for everybody to respond? Busaina, perhaps first. So we start there, and we're going to go through everybody.
I will add something about this
Yes,
question
we're going to go through the whole. But let's start with Busaina, please.
Thank you for your question. Really, I don't have statistics about your question. The position of the Jewish community, I know that concerning the Palestinian case, I know that after the war of 1967, a lot of Jews emerged from Tunisia because they don't support the Palestinian case. Yeah. Some Jews living in Jerba in Tunisia, they consider themselves as Tunisian. That's all. But they have their relatives in Israel, so it's complicated to. I don't have statistics about that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Khadija?
Well, I don't have statistics either, but I can tell you that in Morocco, as in Tunisia, there are, I'm thinking of Maurice Sarfati in Morocco and George Adda in Tunisia, who are, George Adda died now, but he is Jewish. He was Jewish by birth, but he was Tunisian. And when he died, I was at his burial before the revolution. It was very, very moving, a very moving ceremony. It's the first time there was no religion at all. There was only the Tunisian flag on his coffin. So there are some Tunisian Jews who are Tunisian before being Jews. Those who felt or feel more Israelis, they have left and they live elsewhere, either in Israel or in Europe. About the Amazigh in Algeria, what I can tell you is that I myself did not know much about Amazigh in Tunisia let's say 20 years ago. And I learned about them in Morocco, where, of course, as I said in my presentation, they represent about 50% in Morocco, 40 to 50% of the population, whereas in Tunisia they represent only 1%. So you see, the difference has its impact on I met once a group of Amazigh from Moroccan Amazigh, and they told me that they were going to form an association with Amazigh in Algeria. And I followed the event and was not surprised to hear that at the airport, Algiers airport, they were sent back to Morocco. Now things have changed because, as you know, you may know, the Algerian Amazigh or Qabiles went through violent marches to ask for the right to have Kabyle taught at school, and they have now a chair, a department of Kabyle, so they've made it, and they have much more freedom now. Kabyle is taught in schools, I think, but in Tunisia they're just starting, just to go back to Tunisia. I don't know if I have answered your question. Thank you.
Please. Yeah, I would like to add a very good question about Algeria. I published a chapter in a book actually about Algeria and Morocco, and I did a comparison between the Amazigh movement in Algeria and Morocco, and there are distinguished differences. Mainly the fact that the movement in Morocco is more peaceful than in Algeria for cultural, political, and historical reasons, because Algeria had a bloody fight for independence, 1 million victims. So there is a violence in the history of Algeria, especially the struggle for independence. And after independence, although, as I said in my paper, the movement actually participated in the struggle for independence in Algeria and Morocco, but after independence in Algeria, the Berbers were marginalized. And the Algerian state in the 60s, 62, focused on state building, 100% Arabization, and a complete exclusion of Berber, not only from school, but from public space. And I remember I met Algerian students when I was a student in England, and they could not write like a research paper on Amazigh, whereas I could. Fatima and I did our PhDs on the Amazigh movement and language. They couldn't, because they said they would be taken to jail when they go back, or the least thing, their degree would be rejected. Okay? So there is this rejection of the Amazigh culture and identity in Algeria since independence. And in 1988, they had, for the first time, the Amazigh Spring. More than 100 killed by the army in Tizi Ouzou, in Kabylie, because the movement, the Amazigh movement, wanted more freedom, more recognition, official recognition, and more cultural revitalization. And that was denied to them by the state, by the army, and by the generals in those days. But now Algeria has changed since the 1990s because they had other violence. And in 1994, I think, for the first time, Amazigh was recognized and taught in Algerian schools. And in Morocco, the monarchy has been able to adopt the Berber movement and to adapt it to reality. And as you said, why the king recognized Berber as an official language? It was a follow-up of the uprisings of 2011, and it was done very effectively to calm down the streets, the protests, but also to reach the Amazigh movement and the populations, and to keep their loyalty to the monarchy. And also because in the monarchy in Morocco, since independence, we have recognized multiculturalism and multi-party system. When every country in the Middle East and the North Africa had a unique party, political party, Morocco had several political parties, because there was this concern for diversity, but also concern for the monarch to be the arbitrator over all parties. And also the king's mother is Berber, so he's half Berber. And by the way, the Berbers in Morocco don't consider themselves a minority because they think that historically the whole Maghreb was Berber and Amazigh. The Arabization is due mainly to the Islamic conquest and to the Islamization of. Thank you.
Okay, yes, very briefly, I would start by this question of the Algerian and what Moha has just said. We should reflect on the fact that Morocco was completely Islamized by the 11th century, I would say, 10th, 11th century, but until today it's not completely Arabized. So that will send you thinking about the importance of the two languages. بالنسبة للغة، لماذا اللغة الأمازيغية رغم وجود هذا الفن لماذا يعني لم تصبح لغة كاملة بنحوها إلى آخره؟ هذا صلب الموضوع، لأن ما عندنا مشكل إثني، عندنا مشكل لغوي communication. لأن اللغة حتى لما كانت هناك يعني كان هناك حكام أمازيغ لم يستعملوا اللغة الأمازيغية، لأن اللغة العربية كانت تجمع، الإسلام كان يجمع، فهي اللغة الأمازيغية لم تكن تاريخيا لغة مركزية للحكم، لم تكن كذلك حتى عند الأمازيغ. وبين قوسين حتى الآن يعني معظم الإسلاميين هم أمازيغ، ما عندناش يعني مشكل، ما عندنا مشكل، هو مشكل لغوي. اللغة العربية كانت لها مساحة أكبر فيما يخص يعني authority، فيما يخص القرار إلى آخره. لهذا لم يكن لها هذا الرصيد أو وحتى رصيدها يعني لم يحفظ تاريخيا. لهذا أنا التجأت إلى الفن. Our chair asked me, do you have a picture of the alphabet? This is one of it. I mean, most of the symbols there are symbols of the alphabet. This is an art thing which shows something archaeological. It's done by a woman, but also some symbols and the alphabet to show that there is this connection between the two. A change of language, the person who asked the question has left. Anyway, the change, why is it that you hear more English? French is still very strong in the Maghreb. It's still very strong. But English is spreading. It's spreading quickly because of globalization, of course, and because of youth music, youth culture, and so on. So we are a multicultural or multilingual country. I think that, I don't know, but this is my point of view. I think that in Morocco, the languages, they do survive together without a lot of friction. I mean, you can use, and we code switch. We use different languages, especially women, because most of us are not educated as Moroccan women, so we code switch. We use French to show that we are educated, and we use also English to show that we are very much educated, and so on. So languages, I think, and I guess the same thing Buthaina is telling me is happening. Now the Jews, the Berbers, the Amazigh in North Africa were Jewish before they became Christian, before they became Muslim. And linguistically, there are many words in Amazigh which have Latin origin. In Amazigh, we say ifilu, for example, for a thread, which comes from the French le fil, and this is Latin. And we do also have a lot of words which come from Hebrew and so on. So this is, as I said, for political reasons are what they are, and the language was marginalized for political reason. It's now, Berber is now like an official language for political reasons, etc. But I chose art because that's the one thing that was not really affected by politics.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take a last round of questions. I'll ask everybody to be very brief so that have the chance to take, I will not be able probably to take every single hand that I see, but I'm going to take a last round, and also I will ask also our presenters to answer very briefly. So there was a gentleman here who was waiting from earlier, and then there's more around the table. I'm going to have just again, please keep your questions as brief as possible.
Yeah, my question is to any of the panelists. You know, I was listening very intently. So is there a consensus among the Amazighs across all these countries that in fact this is not a political issue? Amazigh is a human rights issue. Dr. Fatima said in fact it's not even that, it's a communication issue. But then we hear that yes, the entire North Africa is a land of Amazigh. And so is there consensus? And also Dr. Maha said that there are different Amazigh groups, but I didn't understand, are these geographical entities? Are they ethnicities different from, all these countries? But the question is there consensus that, hey, it is what it is, the land's given, if we reach a multicultural society, we're fine, so there is no political ambitions in that. Is there this sense, like our, Kurdish friends across all these countries, but there's a political, aspiration. That aspiration, I take it, does not exist among Amazighs in North Africa? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a gentleman after you.
إبراهيم حسن. الحقيقة ليا ملاحظتين. الملاحظة الأولى حسن اختيار عنوان الدورة أو الندوة إدارة التنوع، على أساس أن هناك تنوع داخل المجتمعات الشرق أوسطية وبنحاول نبحث عن كيفية إدارتها. الملاحظة الشكلية الأخرى اللغة اللي بيتحدث بيها الإخوة، رغم أنهم كلهم عرب يعني بيتحدثوا باللغة الإنجليزية، وده سهل مدير الندوة يقدم ملخص بسيط لكل من يتحدث على أساس دقيقة أو حاجة عشان يبقى في تواصل مع الناس الموجودين. ليا سؤالين. السؤال الأول بالنسبة للمغرب العربي، تونس لماذا حدثت فيها ما أطلق عليه الربيع العربي أولا، في حين أن المغرب العربي دولة مراكش يعني لم يحدث فيها مثل هذه الانتفاضة، رغم أن المعروف أن تونس دولة اقتصاديا وثقافيا متقدمة حتى عن مصر. السؤال الثاني، أنا شايف يعني كلام كتير عن الأمازيغ وشفت علم طالع للأمازيغ، فعاوز أعرف هل الأمازيغ دول يعني يبحثوا عن دولة ليهم ولا إيه؟ أنا مش فاهم. وشكرا لسيادتك.
Thank you very much. There was another gentleman there in the corner. Again, if you can please keep your questions as short as possible, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحمد شعبان، مركز ابن خلدون. بالحقيقة أنا بتساءل عن الأسس اللي هيتم على أساسها إدارة التنوع في منطقة الشرق الأوسط. ده جانب. ممكن يتقال لي إن بناء على العهد الدولي لحقوق الإنسان، هقول إن المعوق لهذا هو ثقافة هذه الشعوب وعقيدتها. ولذلك لو بصينا للثقافة هنلاقيها مبنية على جانبين، مبنية على الثقافة الأدبية ودي بتدعو إلى الكذب، أعزب الشعر أكذبه، ده الشعراء بيقولوا كده. الجانب الثاني التلقين وده بيعيق الفكر. ولذلك لماذا لا يتم تكريس الثقافة العلمية داخل هذه المجتمعات؟ وخصوصا إن بداية المؤتمر تم بآية قرآنية، وحتى في المجال الديني، يعني أنا بطالب بالثقافة العلمية حتى في المجال الديني، لأن الآية اللي اتقالت في بداية المؤتمر وهي يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم، يعني مش بالدين ولا بالحاجة. ولذلك حتى القرآن الكريم كتاب فصل على علم، وبيقدم نفسه باعتباره إن هو فيه بيان ما اختلف فيه، بيان ما اختلف فيه الناس، وده بتعبير آخر رحمة للعالمين. طب لماذا لا نأخذ هذا البيان اللي اختلف فيه لحل مشاكل المنطقة العربية؟ لماذا لا تقوم القوى الدولية بدراسة علمية بمنهجية العلوم الطبيعية لهذا الكتاب؟ وده اللي بنطلق عليه النهارده واللي في أشد الاحتياج إليه عشان خاطر مسألة الإرهاب، مسألة إصلاح الفكر الديني. لماذا لا يتم بقوة دولية؟ إحنا عن نفسنا متقاعسين وفي ناس ليها مصالح في هذا، اللي هم المؤسسات الدينية اللي موجودة عندنا. طب لإنقاذ العالم، لإنقاذ السلام العالمي، لماذا لا تقوم القوى الدولية بهذا؟ آسف للإطالة وشكرا.
Thank you very much. So I
يا
will
ريت
take...
في الآخر توصلني الإجابة بالعربي. شكرا.
Thank you very much. So we have time only for 2 more questions because we don't... Okay, wait a sec. We have time for 2 more questions. I encourage you to ask more questions during the break, and I'm trying to end earlier so that you have time to use. There's 2 gentlemen here on this side that have been asking to ask a question for a long time. So the gentleman there, and then here on the edge. Then I'll give some time to our panelists to answer, and then please take advantage of the break to keep asking questions to our panelists. Please.
Jamal Salah, Ibn Khaldun Center. Dr. Moha, you're talking about Morocco. Would you like to mention something about Polisario movement separation? And would you like to mention something about Tariq ibn Ziyad and Musa ibn Nusayr? They were Amazigh also? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The gentleman here in the edge.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ahmed Osama, member of the Global Board of Trustees, United Religions Initiative. First of all, I would like to thank this very specific sessions, and all of the schedules really were organized. Thank you for all our speakers, and I'm sorry for missing 2 of you because regarding the traffic. I would like to ask and suggest that the example for Dr. Fatma Sadiqi mentioned in the art and the culture and the women activities, I think it's a very nice bridge for bridging cultures for overcome the myth of communication with the linguistic issue. So if it is possible to organize like events, we have here in Cairo too, and all of the countries, the heritage and the fine arts and handmade arts, so we can work on it, peace building through art and bridging between cultures through art and culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask our panelists just to answer. I'll give everybody the chance to speak. Just 1 minute literally each, please. So starting from, again, Buthayna, please.
بالنسبة إلى الحديث بلغة العربية، بما أن هذا المؤتمر حول التعدد وحول إدارة التنوع، فقد فضلنا أن لا نتعسف على الأقليات المتحدثة بلغة الإنجليزية، فهو جزء من التطبيق العملي لاحترام الأقليات على الأقل. شكرا. بالنسبة ونحن نتحدث اللغة العربية ونتحدث اللغة الإنجليزية والفرنسية، وأنتم تحدثتم باللهجة العامية وليس باللغة العربية، فقط هي ملاحظة. بالنسبة إلى انطلاق الربيع العربي من تونس، والسؤال عن حول حصول انتفاضة في المغرب الأقصى أقصد، من قال إن انتفاضة لم تقع في المغرب، كانت هناك انتفاضات انطلقت من تونس وشملت عددا مختلفا من الدول العربية منها المغرب الأقصى، ولكن كانت هذه الانتفاضات سلمية، والملك في المغرب عرف كيف يمتص هذه الانتفاضات، فقام بإصلاحات دستورية جوهرية وليست فقط نظرية، ابتداء من دستور 2011. إن تسمحون لي يعني على الحديث عن المغرب، فقد تضمن إصلاحات جوهرية ربما أسكتت الشعب وأثلجت صدرهم. وشكرا. أثلجت صدورهم، عفوا.
Thank you very much. Can I have Khadija perhaps to intervene just so that we go on Tunisian case and then we move to Morocco.
أنا بنتكلم تونسي. ماذا طال يطلب الأمازيغ في تونس؟ أود أن أقول أن لليوم عدة تونسة ما في علمهم اللي فما أمازيغ موجودة في البلد. طالبين الحق باش يستعملوا الأمازيغ في كلامهم. تو ممنوع التلامذة في المدارس يتكلموا أمازيغ. لماذا؟ وطالبين باش يولي الأمازيغ تدرس في المدارس. الوقت الحاضر ما ندرسوا اللغة الأمازيغ، لكن فما برايفت يعني مدرسة في تونس واحدة موجودة فيها 15 تلاميذ يتعلموا في اللغة الأمازيغ، لكن كلهم الأمازيغ واليهود والبهاي وكلهم معناها طالبين حقوق استعراف بوجودهم في البلاد من غير عنف فقط. شكرا.
Thank you very much. Very quick comments from
بالنسبة للعربية الزماني حان الوقت لنتكلم بكل برودة على هذه المواضيع. في المغرب كثيرا ما يعني المثقفون قد يجاوبون أسئلة مثل التي سمعتها: نحن أمازيغ وفخورون بعروبيتنا. هذه في أغلب هي أنا أظن أننا يعني نعرف الكثير عن الشرق الأوسط، والشرق الأوسط يعرف القليل عن شمال إفريقيا والمغرب. وحتى كلمة المغرب العربي الآن يعني وفاء للتاريخ، يجب أن تكون المغرب الكبير، لأنه هو ليس عربيا فقط. هذا هو صلب الموضوع. يعني ربما هذا الأمازيغ ماذا يريدون الاعتراف بهم كأمازيغ نشروا الإسلام وكانوا هناك يعني منذ الاعتراف باللغة. لهذا كان ربما من أولويات الملك أن يعترف باللغة، وهذا شيء جميل. يعني هو اعتراف فقط. في أقول يعني ربما موحى عنده أكثر بالنسبة للجانب السياسي، ولكن هناك يعني مطالب ثقافية أكثر منها سياسية ثقافية I would say. أظن يعني وأتمن ما قلته بالنسبة لأعمال حول الهيريتج.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Last comments?
Very briefly, let's talk about something like the Polisario Front. Has nothing to do with the Amazigh movement. It's a separatist movement, as you all know, that want the Moroccan Sahara. They want independence from Morocco. And it has nothing to do with the Amazigh movement at all. Why do they want a separation? They want their own state because they have been, under Spanish colonization. Also, Morocco has been under Spanish colonization, especially the north of Morocco and some parts in the south, including the Sahara. But since 1975, the Spanish withdrew from the Sahara, and according to the International Court of The Hague, the Sahara, since time immemorial, was under the patronage of Moroccan king. So since 1975, the Moroccans organized a peaceful march of 350,000 unarmed civilians walking into the Sahara to prove that they are really, part of this land. But with the encouragement of Gaddafi and the Algerian military, the Polisario Front has been asking for independence. And Morocco today, because the king, as I said, likes to adapt and to negotiate all sorts of problems, the Moroccan state has recently proposed a large autonomy for the Sahara. That's it. But the Sahara thing is a national problem, and there are two things that unite Moroccans. Not Amazigh, not Arabic, two things: football and the Moroccan Sahara. Everybody believes in the Moroccanity of the Sahara. So that's one thing. Historically speaking, when the Arabs and the Muslims came to North Africa, especially they reached Morocco, they advanced into Andalusia, to southern Spain and southern France, and the Arabs and the Berber leaders joined forces and worked together and fought together to cross to the north of the Mediterranean. And Musa ibn Usair was an Arab leader who relied on Amazigh army led by Amazigh general Tariq ibn Ziyad, who told his troops when they reached southern Spain, Andalusia, He said, العدو أمامكم والبحر من وراءكم وليس لكم إلا القتال والجهاد. So through that, unity, they managed to cross to southern Spain and stay and rule southern Spain for more than 5 centuries. Another thing, what do the Berbers want, in Morocco at least? They want social justice, dignity, recognition of their language and culture and heritage. They want economic development for their regions, employment for their youth, application of rule of law, and respect of diversity, and respect of democratization, and separation of state and religion. So I think it's a modernizing and a democratizing movement which should be recognized and which should be encouraged, I think. And that's why the monarchy is intelligent enough to work conjointly with this movement for its own survival, but also for the sustainability of Morocco as a developing and democratizing country.
Thank you very much. So can you please join me in thanking our panelists? If you notice from the program, we ate up most of the time that was given for the coffee breaks. So I suggest, if the organizers agree, that we shorten the coffee break to 15 minutes. So we get started at around 11:40 for the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.